Okay, so now we're going to talk about another kind of force. We're going to talk about the force of friction. And friction is called a resistive force, and that means that it tries to prevent systems which are in contact from moving relative to one another. Basically, it tries to stop things from sliding against each other. And there's two different types of friction. There's static friction and kinetic friction. And the variables that are usually used for them are F sub s for static friction and F sub k for kinetic friction. We'll start with static friction, and static friction applies if the speed of the object is 0 relative to the surface that it's on. The magnitude of this force is less than or equal to mu sub s times n, where mu s is the coefficient of static friction, which has no units, and n is the normal force. So you'll notice in that formula that there's a less than or equal to sign there. And what that means is that if you push against an object, the force of static friction pushes harder and harder the harder you push in order to prevent motion, up until some maximum, at which point the object starts to move. And once it does move, the force of kinetic friction takes over. And the force of kinetic friction applies when the speed relative to the surface is greater than 0. The object and the surface are sliding against each other. And for the kinetic friction, the magnitude is equal to mu k times n, where mu k is a coefficient of kinetic friction, which is unitless just like static friction, and mu k is always less than or equal to mu s. And of course, n is just the normal force. If you were to graph the force of friction against the applied force, at first it would be static friction if the object is not moving, and that static friction gets stronger and stronger as you push harder and harder. Eventually, you push hard enough to overcome friction and the object starts to move, at which point the force of kinetic friction is used. And the force of kinetic friction is always less than or equal to the maximum force of static friction.